Welcome back. In the last step, we created a database table. Now, we would want to populate some data into that table. I'll go to the H2 console, refresh it. That's cool. Connect. And when I do a select star from person, I see no data in here. So what I would want to do is I would want to be able to insert data into person. So we need to write a insert query. So I would need to write a query called insert into person. So I'm going to insert into person, and over here I would want to be safe. So I'll define all the column values which are present in here. So I would want to insert into person ID, comma name, comma location, comma birth date. So I'm defining the columns, and then I would want to define the values that I would want to insert. So the values that I would want to insert are, let's say the ID I would want to have it 10,001. So make sure that you are using a big ID value, because at a later point in time we will use JPA and we'll auto generate these IDs, and we don't want there to be a conflict. So make sure that you are having a big value 10,001. That's cool. And the name of the person, I'll give it as Ranga. Make sure you're using single quote and not double quotes. So use single quotes. And the location of Ranga, I would put it at Hyderabad. That's where I am right now and recording it from now. The birth date, I'll take the easy shortcut. So I'll say birth date is sysdate. Sysdate is one of the functions. It gives you the current date and time. Now this is the typical syntax. Make sure that you are exactly typing as it is. The values might be a little different, but the structure of the query should be exactly as it is, and run it. So now you can see that insert into person, update count 1 and 20 milliseconds. That's what you're seeing in here. So let's copy the query. So it's executing fine, and let's see if this data is inserted into the table. How do I do that? I can do a select star from person. Make sure you are selecting that and running run selected. I don't want to delete the insert query. I would want to use it for another purpose, so I'll leave it there. I'll say run selected. Now the select star from person is getting one row from the database. So I can see one row which is coming out of the database. ID, name, location, birth date. You can see all the details are right as well. So that's pretty cool. So I'm copying the query and I'm taking a backup of that query. I've restarted the application now. I'm going back to the H2 console. Now I'm going to run a select star from person. Aha, no rows present. The thing about in-memory database is whatever data you insert, when you restart the application, all that data is lost. So whatever changes you make to the data, they're all lost when you restart the application. It's an advantage as well as a disadvantage. For now, what we'll do is a simple thing to counter that. What we have done is we have taken a backup of the query. So one of the options is I can keep running this query here again and again and again at the start of the application to populate some data. But that's a manual thing. I hate manual stuff. Let's automate it. How do we automate it? Think about it. We already used a specific option to create the table. Why don't we use the same thing to populate some data in as well? Let's do that right now. So what I'll do is in the data.sql, I can create some more queries. These are the values. So I'll not just insert one person, I will insert 3 persons. So 1002, let's say James, and let's say this guy lives in New York, and 1003, and let's say this guy is Peter from Amsterdam. Okay. Make sure that you are having different IDs. ID is a primary key, so you need to have different values for the ID. I'm using 10,001, 10,002, 10,003, and let's stop the server and start it again. The reason I copied the query from whatever we have run in H2 console is because it makes sure that there are no mistakes. So let's go ahead and run this application again. Let's launch up H2 console again. You'd see person, and when I do a select star from person, you see 3 rows. So this is kind of the initial data that we'd be using for our JDBC section. So we now have a table, we have some initial data to play with. What we'll do is we will start using that data to query and put information out In the next few steps, we will really start with playing around with JDBC. In the last few steps, what we have done is we initialized our database, we created a table, we created some data into our table, and now we would start playing with JDBC. Until the next step, bye bye.